Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, and whoever else is choosing to watch this. I finally got my hands on these two beauties. So we have the AMD Radeon RX 5700 and RX 5700 XT. For any of you who've got these cards, they're pretty good. They're exceptionally good value for money. They are a very big leap up generationally on Vega for their performance. But the purpose of this video and what I've been trying to do with these cards is to find out roughly if you have these two cards and you make them clock exactly the same, so same core clock, same memory clock, ramp up the fan speed, increase the power limit to try and get them performing identically on a clock for clock basis, then how much performance increase does the 5700 XT have with its increased hardware? I'm talking texture fuel units, RDNA cores, compute units, whatever you want to call them. It's roughly 11% increase in hardware. It's 36 CU versus 40 CU. It's 144 texture fuel units, 160, so on and so on. It's 11%. So the idea behind this was to find out if we got both cards, ran them at the same clocks, what's the performance difference going to be? And this is to try and ascertain what we can decide what may happen with Nvidia killer, the big Navi, the rumored 64 CU graphics card that has been running around and around in circles, potentially going to come out sometime next year maybe. So what I've done is I've taken both cards, I've clocked them at 1562 megahertz, left the memory at 875, fans at 80%, dropped them both down to 1 millivolt or 1000 millivolt, 1 volt, and increased both their power limits. Now, for anyone who's got these cards will know that regardless of what you do with that core speed, it is like this all the time. That core is going up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So I've done multiple passes on the runs I've done to try and get a more accurate median of data. Test bench was an 8700K at 5 gigahertz, 16 gig, 3200 C14, and we've run all my tests at 1440. We've done a couple at 1080 and a couple at 4K, and the rough average is anywhere from 5.1% up to 8.7% performance increase when they're both clocked the same. Now, that's an 11% increase in hardware, if my maths is right, which might not be. But say if we've got this 11% increase in hardware, now for that 11% increase of hardware, we're seeing it's an average of 6.9% over my test. Now, you do a bigger amount of testing, you'll get a different result, but we're going to say 6.9%. Now, the next thing is, if my maths is right, a large Navi, like a 64 CU Navi, at say 496 RDNA cores, and let's even say a 512-bit memory bus, 16 gig, just so there's no real memory bottlenecks. If they were to go with that, it's about 60% increase in hardware over a 5700 XT, about 60%. And to me, that 60% then would roughly work out, if it scales linearly, and if RDNA scales linearly and performance will scale linearly, which we can't actually test because there's nothing else we can put it up against yet. But if it does scale linearly, and it probably won't, it's roughly looking at a 37% performance increase over the 5700 XT. That's providing they can get the clocks there. That's providing that the architecture scales. But that's a pretty big jump. I mean, 37% over, what's effectively a 2070S. You're getting up there with some pretty good performance numbers. If they can do 64 CUs, which, I'm sure they can't. There's plenty of die space there for them to work with. There's probably no reason why they couldn't run an 80 CU, 4 shader engines with 8 shader units, and basically doubled. It's definitely sky's the possibility there, I think, with this hardware, with the architecture, if it scales. But so that's roughly what I've ascertained. Roughly anywhere between 5.1% and 8.7% was my performance increase for the extra extra compute units. Time will tell whether or not this is bullshit. I hope it's not. I mean, 37% increase on a 5700 XT is going to be pretty awesome, especially if the price point is right. But it would be nice to see another challenging king at the top of that hill. So time will tell. Hopefully we see something big. I hope I'm on the money. I'm hoping a 37%, 35% minimum from a big card. If they can do it, it's going to be good times ahead. Anyway, guys, thank you for the cards. You know who you are. Have a good night. Take it easy.